Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by Güd Marketing and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
Environmental sustainability has become more than a buzzword. It's a permanent way of life for most people and a growing strategy for corporations. Here to share the role of marketing plays in broadcasting the message are two superstars from Güd Marketing in Lansing's Old Town District. Joining us today are Senior Client Strategist and Research Manager Chelsea Maupin and Account Manager Lauren Abbott. Welcome to the show, Chelsea and Lauren.
So
Thanks
great
for having
to be
us.
here.
Did I get your last name right? I meant to ask you that off mic beforehand. Yes. All right. So kind of setting the stage about Güd and what's your platform on sustainability. What is generally your mission as an agency? What types of clients do you serve, and how does environmental sustainability kind of fit into your work?
Yeah, Güd Marketing is focused on strengthening communities. So that means we do work with government and nonprofit entities primarily, and that covers a wide array. It is working to develop more affordable housing and connecting people with education and workforce opportunities, strengthening public health and public transportation systems. And to do all of those pieces, you need a safe and clean environment. So we look and work with entities that do clean air, clean water, clean land. And we really see our work as strengthening those communities and giving individuals the best place to live their lives.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, this really shows up through the partnerships and the types of clients we have, specifically in the environmental sustainability space. We've worked with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy on recycling, educating Michiganders about to increase the quantity and the quality of recyclable materials. We work with the Department of Natural Resources on wildlife management and the education there. And then even with the U.S. EPA to gather public input for the next 5 years of environmental priorities for the Great Lakes.
Right on. Wow. We are stewards of, what is it? Is it 10, 20% of the world? Yeah, 20% of the world's fresh water. So it's important that we do that. And I think a lot of people take a look at, policy and government and infrastructure and mentioned Eagle and EPA and all these different agencies. So I think a lot of people they think about it as like, okay, we know that things probably should be clean and I need to do my part. And then you look at, legislators and lawmakers to kind of create policy to prevent corporations from dumping sewer into a stream and, those kinds of things. But how does marketing kind of play a role in making sure that the message gets broadcasted, whether it's for some of these other agencies, but how do you get that message out there?
Yeah. Messaging, communications is critical to getting new policies, new infrastructure investments, but also you can't just build it and expect people to use it or understand it. You've got to tell them about it. You've got to tell them why they should make a change or start using it. So we see marketing, we see the communications lens as being really powerful for storytelling. It helps people envision a different future, a different reality from what we currently have. And that change they need to make in their day-to-day life, or the change they need to call for on a policy or infrastructure level. So storytelling can help do that. And it also helps normalize new behaviors. One of the most powerful campaigns you'll see in environmental sustainability, we think about Smokey Bear.
Okay, yep.
So almost 100 years old now, or just past 100 years. How many times have you gone camping or been in a backyard and somebody says, only you can prevent forest fires, right? It is so memorable. And you're taking that individual responsibility of protecting the outdoors, protecting that ecosystem, protecting the wildlife that calls it home, and the people who are there with you. So we see our work as building up and creating those new opportunities that normalize something or change how we think about a topic.
And I think about that because you can push information to people, and inform them and give them, information and content, right?
Yeah.
But then you also have the ability to kind of call to action and change behaviors, right? So are those two different messages? I'm not a strategist in that capacity, but I kind of get it from a business development history. So how do you do both, or do you really focus on one or the other?
We do both. Usually the first step to behavior change is informing somebody of something. But if the information was enough, then nobody would do anything that was unhealthy or drive in a reckless way. Just having the information is usually not enough to change behavior. So behavior change takes consistent messaging, it takes convincing, it takes reducing the friction of that action. So people value recycling in Michigan. We've got the survey data that says, yeah, it's important, it's good for the planet, it's good for the next generation, but that doesn't magically move your recyclables in your house into your recycling bin. So how do you change that behavior on a household level, on a business level, so it feels like it's the easy thing to do or just as easy as throwing it away? So that's really the work we are grateful to be able to do.
Got it. And what do you think the biggest barrier is to trying to get people to change their behaviors?
There's a lot of barriers when it comes to environmental actions. One we see is that people tend to have the problems are so big. So my personal actions don't matter. Is recycling this one thing going to change the world?
Yeah, move the needle, right.
Is my car trip the thing that's gonna, contribute to the bigger issues? So reframing each individual action as part of a larger collective is something that we work hard to do, because we have to fight that narrative of, well, my action doesn't matter. We also see a lot of confusion or option overload. What is the right first step? Or do I have to go all the way in? It's not enough to do that first thing. And the last thing that took me by surprise when we started in this work is there's some strong misconceptions or kind of lingering beliefs. One that we found when we worked with the DNR is a good number of Michiganders, almost 1 in 5, kind of have this belief that nature's taking care of itself. It doesn't need people's involvement. But people are part of the environment. We have a huge impact on our ecosystem. Yeah. So getting people to think about that rather than just assuming we could remove ourselves entirely, that's a different conversation you're having.
Right, yeah.
And that's where the storytelling aspect can come in too, showing the people behind this effort just kind of helps move that needle a little further to show that there is work being done and here are the people behind it.
Right.
A lot of that environmental work is invisible to the general public, but there are thousands of wildlife biologists, foresters who are actively paying attention to our outdoors, our wildlife populations, the threats to them, the threats that we as people, as a humanity, pose to them, and actively working on solutions or mitigations. So we're able to tell their stories in a way that most people don't get to see because they're not, deep in the woods in the trout stream.
Right. Literally.
Literally.
In the woods, right? Excellent. Well, I want to ask about maybe a specific example of that after I give a nod to our friends at Wagoner Financial. Whether you're just starting out, planning for retirement, or anywhere in between, Wagoner is here to help you make smart financial decisions. They offer comprehensive, customized planning from investment strategies and tax solutions to insurance, accounting, and estate planning. Wagoner is dedicated to support you, your family, your business, and your future. Using their unique team approach and maximizing each member's specializations, they ensure that there is someone who will have an answer to your question and is ready to give you help. Schedule a consultation by visiting wagoner-financial.com or give them a call at 517-853-3367. So your clients come to you, I would imagine, and just say, hey, here's what we do, and here's kind of the problem, or here's the action we're trying to get people to change. Develop a campaign that makes that change happen. So do you have kind of an example that you're willing to share of a project kind of coming on board and how you kind of tackle that?
Yeah, so actually one of the examples is a long-term client we've had, Eagle, with the recycling raccoon campaign.
Got it, okay.
So in 2015, Michigan had the lowest recycling rate in the Great Lakes region. So the state set aside funding for a statewide education campaign to educate Michiganders about the benefits of recycling, how to properly recycle. And so we started with research, because you have to understand the audience and the people you want to reach in order to resonate with them and create that long-term behavior change and encourage them to take action. So in that research, we looked at what the audience values, their habits, any misconceptions, just their overall beliefs about recycling. And then from there, we launched the Know It Before You Throw It campaign to educate Michiganders about properly recycling. There's 6 members of the squad, so some very fun raccoons who are recycling experts in different recyclable materials, and just it's been, I don't think it's quite the level of Smokey Bear yet, but
we're going to get there.
I've seen billboards,
yes,
for sure.
Yes, but there has been over the years that collective recognition of the squad, and it's really cool to see a fun and approachable way to educate people.
Right on. So now, I imagine that you get hit by people. So the people that you serve are like in the weeds on their topic, and you must kind of take that. You talk about research, but you kind of need to take these experts and their opinions and pounding their fists on the desk kind of a mindset and turn it into something that's digestible to the general public. In a manner of speaking, I kind of do that on this podcast. I bring in a lot of experts at the things that they deal with, and they could very easily go way over our heads and think that they're dumbing it down. But me being one of the dumber people, I make sure that they bring it all the way down and can listen, can have the whole audience kind of digest that. So how do you take kind of some of their scientific data and all of the over-the-top research and stuff and decide how to deliver that message in a way that, a 13-year-old and a 80-year-old people from Detroit and Marquette can kind of read it and get it?
That's definitely where the magic is in marketing, right? Taking all of the things you want people to know, all of the complexity, all of the nuance, and making it simple. So we often have to think about these topics of, okay, if we only have 7 words on a billboard that somebody's driving by,
exactly, yes.
What is the one thing that we can communicate to them in those 7 words in 5 seconds or less?
Right.
So that's often where we start, is what is the one thing, that one message that is what we want people to walk away with. And then we can add more complexity when we've got more time. But you've got to focus on the one thing.
Yeah, super simple.
Yeah, and you can build on it, but you can't tell people 10 things. They don't have the time, the attention, the interest to hear all 10 things. So start with one thing. If they're interested, if you've caught their attention, they're going to come back, and maybe you can tell them a second thing. So maybe you gave them an action you want them to take. Next time you're going to tell them why they should be taking that or how it matters to them. Or the next step, you've started recycling, you've started carpooling, whatever it is, there's always a next action that you could take when you're ready. So we talk about our messaging as layers or funnels and bring people along. So oftentimes when we're talking to experts in the field, it is about, if you only have one shot, what is the one thing? And then we'll start adding in the rest.
Right. And how? What is the process to try to figure out your media buy, right? How do you decide what's a billboard versus a social media reel versus, a television ad? I mean, how do you know where your audience is and decide which is the best way to go?
Yeah, so every different medium has kind of a different value. A billboard can only tell you one thing, but a social media post can capture your attention for a little bit longer, and it can lead you to a website or a page.
Links and stuff. Yeah, of course.
You've got more opportunity to follow through. So we can either tease you to get you to take that next step, or give you enough information, and then if you're really interested, go there. So we use a mix of different places where people get information, and then we also look at who our audience is. So is it younger people, older people, a mix? Is it people in rural areas or urbanized areas? What is the location and the demographic makeup? And then we look at research and media data to really understand which platforms are people using, where do they trust, who are the resources that they're going to reach out to if they have questions on environmental topics. So all of that is a puzzle that we're putting together for a client in order to put messages that we know resonate based on survey data, based on research, in front of people who are open to that message or need to hear it, and at the right time. So you can tell me about this topic, but if I'm in the middle of doing something completely unrelated, am I going to remember?
Right. So I think about analysis, right? And so with socials and that's, you can get your clicks and your penetration, your click-through rates and all those kinds of measurements. But at the end of the day, you're not necessarily trying to just drive eyes. There's got to be some other, how do you measure success? Because at the end of the day, the goal is to have some sort of a metric that says in 2026, people are recycling 7% more than they were in 2021. So you could have a bunch of eyes that don't change behaviors, or you could have a limited amount of penetration, but actually move the needle. And that's arguably more important. So how does Güd Marketing kind of help get that ROI information back to the client?
Yeah, we have a lot of clients who believe in the research, because showing sustained behavior change is often done either in measuring a behavior. So we are delighted to say that recycling in Michigan is up. We're now a leading state in the Great Lakes, coming up from the 2015 numbers. So we've increased 10% over the last 7 years the campaign's been live, which is a huge increase. But not every state agency is able to measure something. How do you measure if people believe that wildlife management is important or value the work being done to keep the Great Lakes clean? So we often rely on survey data of attitudes and knowledge around a topic as a way of tracking behavior change and tracking successive messaging. So going back to recycling, we're able to do a survey every year for the state of Michigan, and we see, people understand they're supposed to rinse out their cans before they recycle them far more today than they did before this campaign went live. They're much more confident that they know the rules and they know where to find their local rules. And they understand the value of recycling a little bit more deeply than before this campaign went live. So it's a factor of kind of the business metrics that we're able to track, and then attitudes and awareness through survey data is where we typically rely for behavior change in a public space.
Right on. Well, I want to thank our friends at Triterra for helping sponsor the show. Triterra is a leading environmental consulting firm headquartered here in Lansing, with staff around the state to serve your brownfield development, environmental consulting, and natural resource management needs. Since 2008, Triterra has been successfully advising a wide range of organizations to implement solutions to complex environmental challenges. If you're a business, a developer, a property owner, lending institution, attorney, or governmental entity looking for a solution and you want prompt and timely service, don't hesitate to contact my friends at Triterra, led by CEO and visionary Don McNabb, leaders JP Buckingham and Dave Van Haren, and supported by dozens of technical experts. You can't miss by calling Triterra at 517-702-0470 or visit them at triterra.us. So Lauren, we talked a lot about kind of details and the path, but is there any kind of key ingredients to, an effective environmental campaign that are just kind of helpful best practices?
Yeah, so I think an important note is that behavior change takes time. But three things that are ingredients, I would say, is to first, you need to understand your audience. We talked about that research,
right.
But we need to, understand what they value, their habits, and their beliefs. And then I'd say, relevant and concise messaging, because you need that, as Chelsea mentioned, that one thing that's going to resonate, and then it comes down to frequency. You got to have that one message and then just hit it to them again and again and again, because, it does take time.
Got it. And just, do you change the message kind of geographically? Because I'm like, the message to a urban Detroiter versus, say, like a Muskegon that might have manufacturing right on the lakeshore versus a person up in Marquette, with the pristine wilderness kind of, it's a small city, but I think people up there might have more of an eye on doing the right thing and stewards of the earth. Not that other people aren't, but I kind of envision very different types of people in those three scenarios. Do you kind of hit the marketing based on your either research or guesses as to what might resonate with that different type of person?
Absolutely. The localization matters a lot. If we're going to capture someone's time and attention and we're going to spend it talking about the revitalization of the Detroit River, that's going to be really powerful in Metro Detroit, where you can now go kayaking on the Detroit River, where in previous generations that would have been absolutely unthinkable. but that same story doesn't resonate in the same way in Muskegon and Marquette. That's not their river. It's not their backyard. So we think a lot about what is universal. So for Michigan, that's often the love of our Great Lakes, the love of nature, the outdoor spaces, the rivers and lakes that we have. So there's ways to make it statewide, but whenever we're able, we want to marry that with localized, really relevant stories, because those can be the most powerful and the most impactful in changing how people are considering a topic.
Right. And do you engage with like local governments or local or community organizations, nonprofits? Like, do you get a kind of a tribe of people that may be like-minded, or have them be part of the research that can give you a better finger on the pulse? Because Güd Marketing, you're not in all of these communities, but they can be a nice shortcut as to what the hot buttons are for their constituents.
Yeah, some of the most impactful work that we've been able to do really does bring to the table a lot of different groups. The project we did with the US EPA was for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative.
Okay.
And we had these input sessions all around the Great Lakes, so one per lake, and it was inviting in stakeholders and the general public. And the work that the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative does is 16 federal agencies, every state that touches the Great Lakes, nonprofit groups, tribes, and indigenous communities, and all of them are together to talk about how do we reach this end goal of clean and safe and healthy lakes. So being able to bring in different voices and different expertise, different cultures to those conversations creates a stronger community towards that action. And that's almost always going to be the most successful type of work that we do, is when you can bring in stakeholder community with overlapping interests.
Right. So now that you say that, it makes me think, do you ever run into environmental groups or other nonprofits or even governmental agencies who are trying to do their own local campaign, and you want to try to nudge them into not giving any conflicting data or statistics or confusing the audience? Is like, hey, we've kind of got this, so either back off or go in tandem, or can we give you advice? Does that ever happen?
It does, and it often comes from a place of, this is our community and we know them better than you ever could, which certainly they do have a deeper connection often to those communities. So we think about ways of collaborating that let them have their own, or that they have their own campaign, but maybe we are supporting it with shared messaging or shared advertising buys that might be beyond the means of a local government, but we are partnered with the state government that has maybe more resources. One of the great examples that we saw coming out of the Chicago area, where we're working on a different recycling campaign, is there was a federal grant opportunity to do recycling education, and each of the counties and solid waste areas were going to bid on that work individually, but there was only so much money available. So they had one person who said, hey, what if we do this work together instead of against each other? We combine our efforts, and that makes a more attractive grant proposal. So they have 7 counties, I think, or 7 key partners that cover the whole Chicagoland. And they are adopting a unified campaign that every local government can adopt and use. And so when you're at home in one place and you go to work in another place, you're getting a consistent, oh, I know that's the recycling message. Oh, I know this. So that story of collaboration, that partnership they've built really ground up to do that work is so powerful, and like such a good example that we keep talking about with other people of, hey, the collaboration is going to be more meaningful, and it's being leveraged into other areas beyond the environmental sustainability or into non-recycling environmental sustainability, because they have a working relationship, they've got partnerships, they've got familiarity with each other's communities now, and experts in the marketing realm in our addition to the project. So that's been really great to watch.
And it's had a ripple effect too. So there was 7 original partners, but now other counties want to share the message and be on board as well. So it's been really, really fun to see how that has the messaging has just spread all across the Chicagoland region.
That's great. And I didn't bring this up earlier in the show, but we are recording this in April, which is the home of Earth Day. And so that's why we kind of timed this conversation to happen during the Earth Day month, regardless of when you actually hear this recording. But do you get a kind of a surge in requests for Earth Day specific campaigns or messaging? Everything we've shared so far has been kind of around the calendar, a momentum driven macro pushing a message out. But do you get short bursts of it's Earth Day, let's do this campaign?
Well, Earth Day is now a whole Earth month for a lot of people.
Got it. Yeah, good point. Yes.
Yeah, we're growing it bigger and better.
Yeah.
We tend to work with partners who are committed to the kind of long-term change, so we get less like flash in the pan, let's only talk about it. But it is a great time for companies and businesses to talk about their commitments to the environment. So we do look at ways that we can integrate those messages when they are more relevant, which is Earth Day, Earth Month. Spring cleaning tends to be something that people think about. I'm getting rid of all of the stuff. How can I do it in a way that is environmentally sustainable? So we look at different opportunities to weave in those environmental messages in a way that leverages the time period when people are thinking about it more often.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, we've been talking with the folks at Güd Marketing. What's the best way for people to kind of stay engaged with your firm, and maybe even does your social or your website have more details on kind of how this all works if people are interested?
Yeah, so you can go to gudmarketing.com, gudmarketing.com, or follow Güd Marketing on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Wonderful.
Well, I appreciate you being here. We've been speaking with the senior client strategist and research manager. Does that all fit on a business card? Chelsea Maupin and account manager Lauren Abbott. I really appreciate you coming in here and sharing your story and doing all the good work that you're doing. Wish you could see the GU with the umlauts D on that. But thank you very much for joining me here today. It's such an important story and topic, and I appreciate all the work you do.
Thanks for having us.